Hello and welcome to ITV News Central. On the programme tonight.
Let me put it straight, sincere and blunt, narrow-mindedness must run and high.
Birmingham-born writer and campaigner Benjamin Zephaniah dies at the age of 65.
It's a great loss to the world, and it's definitely a great loss to Birmingham.
The West Midlands Mayor is to get more powers, adding crime to the to-do list. But Andy Street won't explain his plan to tackle it.
Join me later in the programme as we find out whether it's better to buy an artificial Christmas tree or the real thing.
And just when we thought it couldn't possibly rain anymore, it does. It will continue to rain as we head through into the coming weekend too. I'll have all the details for you a little bit later in the programme.
Good evening. A poet, author and campaigner, Benjamin Zephaniah became one of Birmingham's most prominent voices against racism and discrimination. And today, his death was announced at the age of 65, just 8 weeks after being diagnosed with a brain tumour.
Well, for many, his best-known work is the children's poem Talking Turkeys, a favourite in schools at this time of year. Hannah Beshley has been looking back at his life and listening to some of his work.
Open up your mind, make some rhythm come in. Open up your brain, do some reasoning. Open up your thoughts so we can connect. Open up for knowledge and intellect. Open up. I'm a poet, novelist, musician, actor, and my mum said I'm a naughty boy.
That was Benjamin Zephaniah in his own words, one of Britain's most loved poets from right here in the Midlands.
I was born and bred in Brum. Yeah, I love to say that.
And people loved him for it.
Professor Benjamin Zephaniah gave me something that he probably never had, which is someone who looks and feels like me, who can do the things that we do. And I think it's so much more powerful because I had Benjamin Zephaniah. I had someone who I could look to who was from down the road from where I grew up where my mother grew up. And he didn't have that.
His best-known acting role was even set in Birmingham, playing part of the much-loved criminal gang, the Peaky Blinders. The dub poet from Handsworth said himself he was an example of a potential life of crime caught in time, and he used his experience to help others. This is him taking part in a promotional video for the probation service. Campaigning was the essence of Benjamin's work.
Open up your house, make the refugee come in. You might overstand and start helping.
From helping refugees to animal rights, he overcame dyslexia to make his words matter.
I think once he realised the power that he had, the power of words, the power of communicating with people, the power of crossing all kinds of boundaries, and also working on so many different platforms. So you could see him on television talking about politics. And then he'd write these beautiful, eloquent children's poems. So I think the embodiment of somebody who had 100% of everything and then add another 100%.
Those talents led to Benjamin receiving 16 honorary doctorates and an OBE nomination in 2003, which he turned down due to its association with the British Empire. His family said he was diagnosed with a brain tumour 8 weeks ago and died this morning, aged 65, with his wife by his side. They've paid tribute, saying Benjamin was a true pioneer and innovator. He gave the world so much. Through an amazing career, including a huge body of poems, literature, music, television and radio, Benjamin leaves us with a joyful and fantastic legacy. That's something those at the Midlands Arts Centre in Birmingham echo.
When I think of Benjamin Zephaniah, I think of someone that's fearless, that just is, like I said before, living his truth and being himself fully in every single way. It's a great loss to the world, and it's definitely a great loss to Birmingham.
Benjamin Zephaniah, who's died at the age of 65. Well, many of you have been in touch on our social media pages to pay your tributes to Benjamin Zephaniah. Linda Holland in Burton wrote, "Sad news, loved his work and the lengths he went to engage the youth in his hometown."
Colin Sang posted he was a fantastic guy who refused an OBE and still recognised as a national treasure. He'll be missed, never forgotten, and always will be in our hearts.
Donna Woodbine said, "Truly sad news. He was such an inspirational person. Condolences to his family."
And this one is from Ashley Griffiths, who wrote, "So sad. I hope he was able to see Aston Villa win last night. Rest in peace."
Next tonight, the former Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands has hit out at plans to scrap the role, saying without an elected commissioner, attention to policing will be downgraded.
It comes after the Home Secretary yesterday approved the West Midlands Mayor Andy Street's proposal to have the powers come under the Mayor's office after the next mayoral election in May. But today he refused to tell our reporter Lewis Warner how he would help tackle crime.
The powers over policing are about to change. Out is the directly elected role of Police and Crime Commissioner, responsible for budgets and holding the Chief Constable to account. Instead, whoever wins the next mayoral election will win far more power. Last night, the Home Secretary confirming in a letter to the current Mayor Andy Street he has granted his request to have the role scrapped and the powers transferred. Writing, "I am satisfied that it is right that we should proceed to transfer the functions to be exercised by the Mayor of the West Midlands from the point of the May 2024 elections." Today, Conservative Andy Street, who is running again for the job in May, welcomed the decision, but refused to say how he would use the new powers to help tackle crime. How will you help reduce crime?
So, all of this will be laid out for you in immense detail.
So you're not going to say today how you will actually use the powers you've asked and had transferred to you?
I am going to tell you that all of that will be laid out incredibly clearly to you. We've only just had the confirmation of that. The assembly of the crime plan is going on and you will see it and scrutinise it in immense detail.
The West Midlands has had an elected Police and Crime Commissioner since 2012. Voter turnout in recent years, though, has been as low as around 30%. The force itself has recently been put into special measures, the watchdog saying it has concerns about how the force manages investigations and cares for the vulnerable. This change, though, puts the current PCC, Simon Foster, and his wider team out of their jobs, a move he's described as a hostile takeover. His predecessor has also voiced concerns, saying crime would not be the Mayor's top priority.
The job of making sure that we're all safe, to make sure that we're cracking down on crime, is so important to the people of the West Midlands. It shouldn't be just tagged on to the job of the Mayor who has lots of other things to do, and I regret that this will mean that the attention to policing will be downgraded.
Andy Street says crime has risen. It's more than doubled under Labour Police and Crime Commissioners. So he would say the current system is clearly not working.
Well, crime has doubled under this Conservative government. Huge cuts to policing in the West Midlands, some of the biggest cuts of all. What you need is a Police and Crime Commissioner who is there to challenge the government. And I'm afraid perhaps Mr. Street wouldn't be in a position to challenge the government in the way that a PCC should.
The government says it's committed to bolstering the remit of regional mayors, with those in London, Manchester and Leeds already in charge of the police. But there is no guarantee Andy Street will get to exercise the very power he succeeded in bringing to his office. That will be down to voters next May. Lewis Warner, ITV News.
Let's get some news in brief now, and CCTV footage has been released by police after a yard manager was convicted of gross negligence manslaughter following the death of a worker in an industrial shredder in Wolverhampton. It shows Brian Timmins using a JCB to lift David Willis to clear a blockage in a shredder at Timmins Waste Services in September 2018. He fell into the machine and died. Timmins can then be seen peering into the machine later. He then returned to process more recycling. It meant that the remains of Mr. Willis were never found. Timmins and TWS were found guilty of corporate manslaughter.
Now, this week has brought fresh warnings of the dire financial situation facing many of our councils. Birmingham declared effective bankruptcy in the summer, and Coventry is also warning of severe cuts which may have to come.
Council finances are discussed tonight on our monthly political show, Central Lobby. And for more on this, we can cross to the show's presenter, our political correspondent, Alison McKenzie. Alison, what can we expect?
Well, yes, council finance is a huge issue of concern. As we say, Birmingham has declared effective bankruptcy. We all depend on these services for schools, for adult social care, for vulnerable services. Everyone needs that. But I spoke to Councillor Sean Davis, who warned that 20%, he chairs the Local Government Association, 20% of councils in this country are going to possibly declare bankruptcy, unheard of before 2010, but now a real possibility. Well, on tonight's programme, I spoke to James Morris, the Halesowen Conservative MP. He insists the government is going to provide funding.
We announced yesterday that there would be above inflation rises in council funding in the next financial year. Additional funding going into adult social care. But there isn't a systemic issue. Each individual case has particular examples of failures of corporate leadership. And as I say, I know about Birmingham more than Nottingham, but Birmingham is a classic example of an authority not gripping a major financial issue and now reaping the consequences for local council taxpayers.
Of course, Birmingham Council dispute that. They say they're the victims of years of austerity when millions of pounds were taken away by central government, so they dispute that. Also, on tonight's programme, we look at the controversial issue of the lack of payment for those infected by contaminated blood products from the 70s and 80s. A huge issue. People from the Midlands were down here this week. Central Lobby about 11:15 tonight and on ITVX.
Sounds like a great show, Alison. Good luck, and we'll speak to you tonight. Thank you.
Next, plans to fire and rehire bin workers if they don't agree to changes to their contracts are due to be introduced by Coventry Council after the idea went unopposed at a council meeting. The move will stop the practice of employees leaving early if they finish their rounds while earning the same pay. The union Unite has opposed the plans, meaning strikes are expected.
The parents of a young man who died after a cardiac arrest are calling for defibrillators to be placed outside of state school buildings for easier access. They're currently installed inside them.
James Rees had CPR from a police officer who managed to restart his heart. But he had to wait 20 minutes as the defibrillator was inside a locked building. And he died 4 days later in hospital. Andy Bevan reports.
Being able to drive is a big step on any teenager's road to adulthood, but Jamie Rees's journey was cut tragically short. The 18-year-old from Rugby went into fatal cardiac arrest at a friend's New Year fireworks party in 2022. There was a defibrillator nearby, but it was inside a locked school building. Jamie's mother set up a charity called Our J, and today his parents were at Walsall Academy to unveil an automatic external defibrillator, or AED, which can be used by anyone without any specialist medical training. This one is situated outside.
We absolutely believe that had that defibrillator been on the outside of the school and his friends had been able to get to it, he would absolutely still be here today. The fact that Jamie's heart was restarted even after 20 minutes is actually quite rare. So potentially, if it had been on him in less than 10 minutes, there's no reason that he couldn't have been saved.
Jamie's parents were joined this morning by West Midlands Ambulance Service paramedic Alice Jones, who gives up her spare time to teach CPR techniques in schools, as well as raising awareness of AEDs. Last year, the government earmarked £19 million to equip all state schools with AEDs. Around 20,000 have now been installed, but most are inside and only accessible during school hours.
By using the defibrillators, it's able to analyse the heart rhythm and whether a shock is advised or not. And with them being at schools, this is at the heart of communities, with 70% of cardiac arrests happening within 500 metres of a school. So it is really important to sort of push schools to have them, and more importantly, have them outside on a gate available 24/7.
Walsall Academy's head teacher is hoping today's lesson in life-saving and the new AED will send an important message to other schools.
Well, the school already owns 2 defib machines inside of school, and when we had the opportunity for the third, it made absolute sense to have this in the community so our residents and our local people could all make use of this life-saving opportunity.
Research has shown that when an AED is accessed within 3 to 5 minutes of a cardiac event, it can increase the chance of survival from 9% to 50%. With an advantage like that, Jamie's mother is hoping her son's story will help to save many other lives. Andy Bevan, ITV News.
You're watching ITV News Central. Thank you for your company this evening. Still to come on the programme. Do you know what these are? They're certainly incredibly cute, and we'll be telling you more later on.
And real or fake Christmas trees, which are best? The ITV Evening News is on after us. Here's Lucrezia with the details.
A manhunt is underway in Folkestone after a 7-year-old boy is killed in a hit and run. The parents of William Brown make a heartbreaking appeal for the driver to come forward. Also, Boris Johnson denies wanting to let the virus rip on his final day at the COVID inquiry. And the review into Philip Schofield's behaviour on This Morning is revealed. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Now, as a nation, we are expected to have around £3 billion less to spend this Christmas because of the cost of living crisis. So how can we make the most of this festive season on a budget?
Well, in the Tonight programme later on this evening, Angelica Bell discovers some of the ways to keep costs down while still having fun this Christmas. Kevin Ashford reports.
Christmas is coming, and this year it seems many people are feeling a seasonal pinch.
Everything's more expensive. Things that you remember last Christmas being like, £1 and now £2.
The presents are just so expensive now that I've had to cut down.
I've decided I'm cutting back on the things I'm buying for the children and grandchildren.
And it seems consumers aren't the only ones dealing with rising costs. This company has been making that Christmas favourite chocolate for more than 130 years.
Last year, the value of the chocolate in that tank would have been £50,000. Today, there's £70,000 of the chocolate in that tank.
So how can we cut the cost of Christmas and still have a reasonable level of festive fun? The Tonight programme has been getting tips from a range of experts like Gemma Bird, who says a bit of do-it-yourself can save pounds.
I think a really, really good idea is making your own gifts. It's so lovely and it's so personal to you. So I've just got something I want to show you, actually.
Brilliant.
So what we've done is I went to a charity shop, and my mum loves anything personalised with the kids. So I've got Brody 11 and Bronte that's 4, and I got them to put their handprints on, and literally just added some eyes and a red nose. I mean, I'm no Picasso, but Mum would rather this over any expensive present.
It's estimated that a family of 4 will spend around £90 on Christmas dinner. It needn't be that way, according to chef Michael Weiss.
There's loads of choice we can have. Right? There's loads of little bits and pieces you can do, have a fantastic meal at a fraction of the price.
He says the first way to cut costs is not to buy a whole turkey.
Yeah, so we've used a thigh, only a thigh. Brown meat, delicious, juicy.
And the thigh is cheaper than the breast?
A lot cheaper.
So even with trimming costs, it should still be a Christmas with all the trimmings. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
I was going to say food for thought, but that's probably a little bit cheesy, isn't it? Actually, there is more on that whole subject on tonight. Cutting the cost of Christmas on ITV1 at 8:30 p.m. this evening.
Well, let's stick with Christmas because while some people might have their Christmas tree up already, some of us may yet have to buy one. And there's a bit of a debate about which are better. Should we get a real tree or an artificial one? Sam, what do you have?
Artificial, but it's a very old artificial one. So
yeah, mine is about
15
12
years.
Mine's 12 years old.
Fine. Yeah. Okay, so we passed the green test, haven't we? Because you said so. After 10 years,
they start to become carbon
neutral.
Yeah, and then obviously it's carbon negative the more you have them.
Right, fine. Okay, so we're okay for now. But figures do show that around a third of us think that fake one is best. But is that a bit of a festive fact or fiction? Well, Raheem Rashid has been finding out.
With just over 2 weeks until Christmas, are you going real or fake? Shoppers in Birmingham have mixed views about their festive trees.
I think it's more environmentally friendly to have a real one, but I understand you could argue both ways, really.
When I was kids at home, we bought real ones. And the fake ones go year after year, so I think they're probably better.
I like the real one, of course. The smell is good, and you feel the real Christmas at home.
So we actually have a fake Christmas tree, but we've had that Christmas tree now for at least 5 years, and we plan to keep it for at least another 5. And purely because apparently that, I think you're supposed to keep them around 10 years for them to really get the use out. Sustainable, isn't it? Absolutely.
So, what do Christmas tree producers have to say? They, of course, argue real is the best way, saying they're more sustainable for the environment, as for every one that's chopped down, up to 5 are replanted.
They're more sustainable. Every single part of a Christmas tree is biodegradable and recyclable. Ultimately, a Christmas tree doesn't pollute. It removes pollutants from the air. An artificial tree is going to be using hydrocarbons in its production, dyes, and who knows what else goes into its making. And of course, when people are tired of it, or it's got a bit tatty and they're throwing it away, it's just going to go into landfill, it's going to be incinerated.
And the statistics back that up.
Figures show a real Christmas tree like this is responsible for around 4 kilos of greenhouse gas emissions, whereas an artificial Christmas tree is responsible for up to 40 kilos, which means you'd have to reuse it for 10 years before you make up for its environmental impact.
But the ease of a plug-and-play artificial Christmas tree is often just too good for some, with 60% of trees sold at one major retailer being fake.
They've really come a long way since certainly what I grew up with in the 80s. They're much more natural looking. How they're made is with injection molding, so the sprigs look exceptionally natural. They're really easy to put up. They're really easy to store. There's also a really broad assortment, so you can go from really natural, so the wide variety, and also there's less cleanup.
So as this year's Christmas trees are being wrapped up and shipped out, the real or fake debate is always going to divide opinion, depending on what side of the tree you sit on.
In my mind, real. We take 10 years to grow a crop. It's sustainable, slow growing, creates a wonderful habitat for wildlife. I think anything that's grown in the UK and is then produced and sold in the UK helps with working, it helps with environmental issues, and I don't see there's negative.
So if you're conscious about the environment, real is the way forward. But if you prefer convenience, then a fake tree will see you through the festive season. Raheem Rashid, ITV News.
Well, that was interesting. I was glad to hear Raheem say if you've got an artificial tree that you've had for more than 10 years, it does start to make back the carbon that it took to make it. So that's comforting.
Yeah. So we're okay.
We're okay.
Yes. Yeah. Just keep it for as long as you can. I think that's
if
the
you already
message,
have one,
isn't it?
keep
Yeah.
it.
Now, 2 of the world's the world's smallest foxes, I should say, have arrived at a zoo in Worcestershire. Pascal and Laszlo made the 1,500-mile journey from Hungary to All Things Wild in Honeybourne in Evesham on Tuesday. Now, the pair of male fennec foxes weigh less than 2 kilos, that's £4 in old money, and they're 40 centimetres or 18 inches in length.
Well, as you can see there, their most distinctive feature is their very large ears, which apparently are up to 6 inches tall. They have very sensitive hearing so that they can listen out for prey moving underground. The foxes are native to desert climates, which is a little bit different to the rolling countryside of Worcestershire, fair to say. Staff at the zoo say it's part of a European conservation scheme.
In the wild, fennec foxes are regularly poached and trafficked for the illegal pet trade. So having a structured breeding program for this species in captivity is really important to make sure that the insurance population is healthy and stable. Should the worst thing happen to the populations in the wild, we have something ready where we could reintroduce them potentially in the future. So hopefully we'll be pairing these guys up in the near future. Having them here at All Things Wild is really important to us. We as a zoo absolutely adore working with fennec foxes, so we'd love to bring in some females and create a stable population here at the zoo.
Very cute too. Now let's get the weather with Ruth.
ITV Central Weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
Hello there, very good evening to you. A wet and windy day today with more of the same over the next few days, I'm sorry to say, with low pressure just piling the conditions in. So as you can see, one frontal system after another unsettled tomorrow. Possibly something a little bit drier and brighter for the start of the weekend before it all goes downhill again into Sunday. And the signs are that there's no real change on the way until at least the middle of next week, where we should see something slightly more settled, but also something a little bit cooler as well. So it's all very hit and miss. Certainly not pleasant out there at the moment. Rush hour, not pleasant. The roads pretty tricky with surface spray. But the good news is over the next few hours, the heaviest of the wet weather will clear eastwards. Possibly a further few showers tucking into western fringes by the early hours of tomorrow morning. But for many of us, it'll be a dry end to the night. Some clear skies as the winds ease back, possibly some mist and fog gathering too. And with the temperatures not really dropping much below daytime values, 6 or 7 degrees, it should be largely frost-free, maybe a little bit cooler under clear skies in more sheltered rural spots. So for some, a murky start to tomorrow morning, but there will be some blue sky and sunshine. Make the most of it if you can though, because really as the morning wears on, the cloud will build and we'll see further showers working their way in, merging into longer spells of heavy rain. So again, just be careful on the roads, really miserable conditions and possibly some localised flooding for some areas. The ground is just so saturated at the moment. Temperatures tomorrow, a degree or two up on today's values. It's a southwesterly airflow, so we should top out with highs of around 9 or 10 degrees. The showers will clear through Friday night and into Saturday morning, a decent start to the weekend.
ITV Central Weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
Well, finally tonight, we've got some more tributes to Handsworth-born Benjamin Zephaniah, who sadly died at age 65 today. And we'll start with Aston Villa, who wrote, named as one of Britain's top 50 post-war writers in 2008, Benjamin was a lifelong Aston Villa fan and had served as an ambassador for the foundation.
Well, also paying tribute was author Michael Rosen, who said, I'm devastated. I admired him, respected him, learnt from him and loved him.
The Birmingham Council leader, John Cotton, wrote, a proud Brummie who made his city proud.
And MP Shabana Mahmood said, a son of Handsworth and the Windrush generation, Benjamin Zephaniah spoke in the voice of Birmingham's migrant communities.
Of course, lots of those tributes are continuing online and, of course, on our social media. You can see them if you want to. That is it, though, from us for this evening. Happy Hanukkah if you're celebrating, and from us, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.